The modern family. Let us bridge the gap between generations. Let us shape up the modern family. The modern family. The modern family. Join the discussion and give us your feedback. Live with Hatem Al-Abd Salam and Dr. Wa'il Al-Harasi. The modern family.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Peace and blessings be upon our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Dear listeners, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I salute you with the salutation of Islam from me, Wa'il Al-Harasi and Hatem Al-Abd Salam, in a brand new show, The Modern Family. Today we are towards the end of the Ramadan. It could be the last day, it could be tomorrow. We have picked up a lot throughout this holy month. I really think that this Ramadan was the fastest Ramadan ever. Yeah,
indeed.
It's as if we started yesterday, and today we are talking about the end of Ramadan. We have covered a lot of topics, and we have shared a lot of tips. Today, if you have started using those tips, today we are going to talk about how to sustain that performance that you have, gained throughout the month. Both in terms of raising up your children and maintaining your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this holy month, and how can we sustain that throughout the year until we say marhaban to Ramadan again next year, inshallah. Here in the studio we have two distinguished guests, very special guests indeed, for many reasons, which we will discover inshallah in the next few minutes. With me here, Ibtisam bint Muhammad bin Barakat al-Riyamiyya, People and Change Director in Petroleum Development Oman. It's an honor to have you here. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation.
The honor is ours. Thank you.
Yeah, and we also have Fathiya Al-Farsiyya, who has, I don't know where to start in her career, head of IT in both the RAF, Oman Tel, and head of information and risk management in PDO. So welcome Fathiya.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us.
First of all, I apologize for calling you Ibtisam and Fathiya, because I could see the mic almost there to fly towards me. Both of you, you've known me since I was
a toddler.
A toddler.
I thought we were not going to talk about age.
Well, I didn't say I wouldn't say anything. You said it.
Okay. Today I'm a bit stuck. We have three people from PDO, and I'm just worried that we start talking about jargon that is used within PDO, and I wouldn't understand.
No, 3 years into PDO, and I still don't understand the jargon. So it's for my own benefit to stay away from it. So we would like to focus today, inshallah, on a very important aspect, which is keeping the momentum going. Whenever we do something, initially we are so enthusiastic about what we do, and people have adopted something from the West, which is the New Year resolution. And the New Year resolution every January always end up in a catastrophe. Yeah, it sort of ends in February, March. Yeah, you start in January, by March you've lost your momentum and you went into your old habits. We don't use that. We might use Ramadan as an example. It's like a station where we stop in the highway and we refuel, yeah, and we go into the highway again, if you'd like. Life is like a highway, yeah, and we stop over in Ramadan. We have a rest, we have a nap, we eat less, maybe, yeah, but we refuel spiritually, and we sort of have a sense of satisfaction that we are closer together as a family, closer together as Muslims during the month of Ramadan. However, after Ramadan, there are a lot of people struggling to keep up that momentum. We would like to know exactly what is it that really makes a work continuous. And the reason I've chosen you is that because you have known each other. One of the reasons, you have known each other for how long?
Ages,
70 years?
Yeah. Well, years and
many
years.
Many years.
Many years.
And let us use this as a starting point. You have a very strong bond and very strong relationship.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. And how did you maintain it? And I know that it's a much bigger forum. Yeah, it's not only the two of you.
Indeed.
It's a much bigger forum.
Correct.
Yeah, and this forum has stayed in touch for a long time.
Correct.
How did you keep up that momentum?
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. In fact, sustainability is really a challenge in anything, and zooming into our relationship, I don't think it's we had a magic stick, but I think it's like in any other relationship. You really have to play a role, and each one has to play a role. And once the roles integrate and complement each other, then that relationship actually sustain and continue. Recognizing each other's needs as well is very, very important. Understanding each other and knowing when to come close and when to draw a bit away and give a person his own space to reflect and do whatever that person needs. So I think it's a combination of factors that actually bond us together. And I think above all, we were blessed by God. Alhamdulillah, nowadays, friendship and relationship do not last very long. And alhamdulillah, as you said, we are not just one or two, we are actually more than 5. That we bonding very closely, we care for each other, we try to help each other in whatever way we can. And we actually also make a point to get together as often as we can and support each other as often as we can. So I think in relation to the subject of today's of today's discussion, it's actually acting on things and making sure that you spend an effort to sustain anything you want to sustain. Spending an effort and a moderate and a fair effort is really, I think, a fundamental thing in keeping anything living and going.
So not taking it for granted, because you don't say that, okay, I'm in good shape now with everything else, correct, so I'll just, relax and do whatever I want to do, correct, and forgetting about the others.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's a relationship, it's good, it's nice, but at the same time you need to keep it up, and you still need to be sometimes sensitive and cautious. Yeah, correct, that this relationship could fall apart anytime.
Correct.
Yeah. What's your view? What's the reason, in your opinion, that made this thing last? And we ask Allah Subhanahu wa Taala make it forever in Jannah.
Inshallah, bi'idhnillah. Yes. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I absolutely agree with my best friend Fathia, my sister, and I think fundamentally a couple of things to take away. You always hear the phrase relationships require work.
Yes.
Well, anything actually requires work. It's about active action rather than staying passive at it and taking things for granted. Absolutely. When I reflect in my own life, when your friend has gone to pilgrimage, al-Hajj, and they're sitting there and they're saying a prayer for themselves, for their immediate family, their kids, and the extended family, and then you come in next to that, you know that you're really blessed.
Yeah.
So I never personally, and I know my best friends, don't take that relationship for granted at all. We are absolutely blessed by it.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. And I think fundamentally what works for us is sincerity. So we go through our ups and downs. We're a whole bunch of women, so that comes with a lot of dynamics with it. We've seen each other through good times. We've seen each other through bad times.
Yeah.
It's absolutely phenomenal that as busy as we may be in life, and most of us are actually very hard-working women. And then one of us actually has an issue, and you see the sincerity behind the scenes. You see how we're all not only helping each other, trying to reach out, but also keeping God in the middle of that relationship. The prayers behind the scenes, the sadaqat behind the scenes, you do what you can, and we give each other space to work through our issues, and at the end it actually works out. So
you mentioned God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this was my next, I'm taking this to the next step. It's a relationship between human beings.
Yes.
You manage to sustain it for a very long time and keep it, not only strong, but stronger by the day. How can we do that with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What is it that you would say we could use from your experiences together as friends, and we personally could use it not only with our friends, but with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Yeah? Because the most important relationship is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Once that relationship is strong, then everything else, would fall in place. What is it exactly? How can we adapt, and learn from this into our relationship with Allah?
Well, in my view, it's very essential that you remind yourself of the blessing you have out of a relationship. Mm-hmm. It's easy sometimes, as you said, to take things for granted.
Yeah.
You just see them happening and you think, they are happening and I'm entitled of it. But that's not the case. If you take Ramadan as an example, I think Ramadan is an intense slice, or is a great slice to give you a feeling of the benefits you have out of following God's teaching.
Yeah.
The purity that you feel, both physically and spiritually, the loving and caring relationship you enjoy with everyone around you, the inner peace that you feel during Ramadan, all these, benefits that you have out of following something very simple of our God's teaching. So I think it's very important that you remind yourself of the outcome and the blessing that you get out of of any relationship you have, especially your relationship with God. And I think, to me, that's what keep any momentum going, is when you feel the benefits and and what you're getting out of it, and you remind yourself constantly and always of the of what are you enjoying as a result. And I think people pays money to go to yoga classes and join gyms and even travel miles to look for health and happiness and peace. But when you feel it in Ramadan, that by just simply
go to the masjid,
go to masjid and feel all that, I think that's one of the things that will help you and will make sure that you actually always strive to keep your relationship with God alive.
Yeah.
I think I've noticed both of you have mentioned 2 points, and they're very common, and this reflects the relationship that you have. Both of you said blessed by Allah, which means that this is a very high priority between the both of you, and you get your source of energy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And again, both of you say 2 things, rephrased it in a different way, but they mean the same thing. Sister Fathi, you said make an effort. And Sister Ibtisam, you said relationship requires work. So both these sentences mean putting in effort. Mm-hmm. And this teaches us that we should not rely on destiny or everything to happen just by chance. We have to work for it. We have to put an effort. We have to try. We have to keep on going. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant us what is meant for us to happen. But if we just sit back and relax and think that everything will just fall into place, our relationship will be good and our friends will be close to us, then it wouldn't work. And this is exactly what will happen after Ramadan. If we think that we had a blessed month, we prayed, we fasted, and we did all the good rituals, and then now it's time for us to break, and the fruits of that praying will reflect on our life now, it wouldn't happen.
No.
Unless we still go on and put
but
more
everything
effort.
doubles in Ramadan, so you can take a break.
No, I don't think so. It works that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because people do understand it that way. Yeah, I'll go to Mecca, I'll pray one prayer, make al-salah.
I'll ask you a question. If you're working, okay, and then you put an extra hour at work, does it mean that tomorrow you don't have to come to work?
Some people think yes.
No, but it doesn't.
You can come late 1 hour.
To me, I think that that effort is something extra that you have put. Okay, maybe you have a task to do, but it doesn't mean that tomorrow's obligation, you're excused from tomorrow's obligation. Tomorrow's obligation is tomorrow's obligation. Today's obligation is today's obligation.
Where do you work again?
He's dragging me into things that I don't want to say on air. Not in front of you, at least.
But if you asked a really interesting question, because I don't think I've reflected on our relationship. We, although we work at it, we certainly consider it a blessing in our life. There's no doubt about it as we grow older together. But I don't think I've ever reflected what lessons can we learn from our relationship that didn't necessarily start with a vision of growing old together and holding hands, at the age of 80 or 90 or whatever. That was not necessarily a conscious vision that we actually had. But we see ourselves, taking steady steps towards it. But if I draw the parallels, reflecting on your question, I think I go back to sincerity. We had the sincerity that grew over time to each other. And you need that sincerity in everything you do with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah. I think the other thing is growth. For mere mortals, we benefited from each other's strength. And as we know, and I certainly, if I talk about myself, in terms of spirituality, I'm nowhere near where I need to be, but I'm certainly miles ahead of where I was. And what's fantastic about our religion and our faith is you understand fundamentally, having gone through first-hand experience, that as you walk towards God, you're strengthened more and more. And that becomes a virtuous cycle where you actually are trying to take one step and you see yourself being gravitating towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even more. Yeah. And that kind of understanding, it comes through, hard-earned experience and lots of work. We saw it in our own relationship. You know each other, you enjoy each other's companies. The kind of activities and jokes we used to crack 20 years ago are not the same. Our relationship now has more meaning because it is actually centered through discussions about the bigger meanings of life. How do you take care of your kids? Where does God fit in and all of this? So it is indeed a very virtuous cycle.
Yeah. If we just go a little bit away from this, but before we do that, I would like to remind our listeners that the lines are open to call. If you want to share your experiences or you have any questions to our guests, you can call us on 24602058. That's 24602058. The lines are open throughout the show, inshallah, and we are here until 2:30.
Dr. Weil, the listeners are busy shopping.
Are they? Maybe. So you could call us while you're shopping as well. Yeah, I think you can take technology anywhere these days. When people talk about sustaining, performance, it's sustainability in itself has become a big issue nowadays. In economy, at work, and both of you are leaders. How do you maintain? How do you ensure that your team keeps up the momentum at work, and maintain, some sort of competitiveness? They want to compete, So is that the main way someone could, use to make a team, grow and sustain a performance? You might use it at work, but I would like to learn from it so I could use it at home with my children, because I believe they work the same.
They're the same principle.
Yeah, sometimes they're both kids here and at work. It's the behavior is the same. Yes. Come to my office, I'll show you.
Yeah, well, this is a really big subject, but I think it evolves around one concept, which is recognizing the needs of all, if you like, the parties involved. So in the case of the office space or the workspace, I think you need to recognize both the need of the individual. So if you have a team member, then you need to recognize his needs in the light of also the objectives that you need to to achieve.
Yeah.
So it's really a balance, if you like, management of what the person needs, what the job needs, and how do you make sure that all these players satisfied in your journey and the way you achieve your objectives. Now, it's drive in my book is very, very important. Is what is it what is in it for me?
Yes.
To start with, and what is in it for every player in the formula, if you like. So we need to focus on the drive. I mean, if you look or if I zoom into my own experience, when I live Ramadan, I really try to, as much as I can, come close to, again, going back to Hatim's word, the fruits that I get. I think we need to, if we start viewing the God teachings, that it's actually for our own benefits rather than an obligation or a burden that I need to do and get it over with, then that gives you a whole transformation of the way you think and deal with anything when it comes to religion. Especially when our kids, for our kids, because, in this modern life, everything for them is fast. Everything for them is, I want to enjoy it. I want to have fun.
Instant gratification.
Exactly. So you need for your kids to show where is the fun and what are they getting out of anything they do, especially if they want them to really practice religion in more than what they do.
To practice even, the simplest of things. Yeah, I have 5 little children, and when we sit around the table, let's bring it simple here. I want them to take their plates when they finish eating. I teach them day in, day out. They don't do it. Yeah, they would do it once, but they don't do it. The reason I ask about competition is that once I said to my children, anyone who forgets to take their plate will take everybody's plate. And they started competing, and they started reminding me. And once what I did, I intentionally did not take my plate. Yeah. And everyone came at me and said, you are going to take the place today. So this sense of competition, could we use it as a drive, to make them, because they started thinking about it every day, and I never needed to remind them again to take their plates, because they started doing themselves. Yeah. They wanted to compete. They don't want to be the loser. Is it something we could use at a work environment? Does it work?
In fact, this is a very good thing that I'm going to go back home today and make sure that I practice with my kids. I think it's a very good idea. But as long as the drive, includes both negative and positive drives. Yeah. So it's like subhanahu wa ta'ala, we've got heaven and we've got hell. So yes. I think it's important sometimes to have both positive incentives and negative incentives, because I think that's the nature, that's how God created us.
To me, I think that each case is independent. One method can be used in one group and it might not work in the other group. Exactly. So it depends on the group. Correct. So different households. I mean, if you go back when we were raised, we were told once only to take the plate, and we took the plate.
Good old days.
And now it's different. So I think every time has its own method and drive. Yes. And you need to really, what you said at the beginning is important, is recognize the needs of that group.
Correct.
So once you find out what is the need and what they required and what motivates them, what drives them, then you can look at the plan and look at the implementation. But without finding out the needs, then it wouldn't work.
When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set the target for us, what we need to do in order to achieve Jannah, what did He say? وَفِي ذَلِكَ فَلْيَتَنَافَسِ الْمُتَنَافِسُونَ. Yeah?
Exactly.
And this is what you need to compete. So that's why I would like to emphasize on the need for competition as one drive for sustainability. Because if there is no competition, where's the fun? Yeah? When we say competition, not in a negative way, it doesn't always have to be negative and turn into a vicious fight between two. Yeah, it could be something very, very innocent, And people do compete in very good ways, although I can't recall
really
anyone so far.
That, you cite that ayah because your initial question was the parallels with work.
Yeah.
You know, what kind of strategies
Yeah.
work there? As you know, I'm the change director also in PDO, and introducing a change doesn't worry me too much. We do that all the time. Sustaining the change is actually what keeps myself and many others on their toes and awake at night. And depending on what kind of change framework, and we'll not go into that. That's not the intent. But I think the parallel is indeed a couple of things, and Fathia said it in her own words. I think if you take that parallel to Ramadan, what Ramadan gives us is the opportunity to stop the rat race. Regardless of your lifestyle, the whole country, everything takes a different pace. So in many ways, it forces you to actually take that break. It's we were talking, Fathia and I, earlier. It's like when we send you guys, your hypos, as we call them, high potentials, to management courses. What happens is you go there and you don't really learn a tremendous amount of newfound information. But what you certainly do is you take that break. You break that rat race that you're in day in and your routine, and you have time for reflection. What Ramadan gives you is that, amongst many other things. And subhanAllah, as you start to do that, even if you're forced, so if you talk about kids, even if you force them to do it, and unfortunately some changes, depending on the group, as Al-Akh Hatim said, may require some of the strategies that you cited, whether it's competition, whether it's a tell, whether it's a carrot, etc. But it gives you that time to actually reflect and experience something that you don't necessarily experience on day to day. Now, humans being humans, you think, this is so fantastic. You go to the masjid and you're hugging people that you've never met before, and it's actually very sincere. So why doesn't that happen after Ramadan? I think over time it does happen. I think with your kids at the moment it's actually a competition, but I said last year you turned out well, and so I think over time it actually sticks if you're blessed by Allah and you've got that sincerity that we talked about earlier. I think the other key parallel we can draw, absolutely fundamental, is discipline. When I put my change director role in PDO, fundamentally it's about discipline. That's where we actually fall. Well, that's where it actually falls apart. So I look at my routine in Ramadan. Absolutely vicious about my timing. I know what I'm going to do in the next half an hour. I know that if I'm not in bed by 10 o'clock and falling asleep at 11, I'm not going to wake up when I'm supposed to wake up and do my night prayers. We rush to the masjid because we've seen the benefit of it. So discipline. At work, it's absolutely the same. You introduce a change, and it's the discipline fundamentally that will make it sustainable or not.
I would like to hear more about that and how to actually plan it. But we'll take a very short break. Dear listeners, and then we'll come back to the discussion today about how to sustain good behavior, how to keep the momentum going after Ramadan, and how to transfer that momentum into everything we do in life. It's something that we have learned through the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So please do call us, share your experiences, any tips that you have, share it with the nation. Call us on 24602058. That's 24602058. See you after the break.
The Modern Family.
Allah Azza wa Jalla in this ayah has given us profound wisdom. When you become people of salat, the opposite is true. When you become people of salat, your heart softens towards Allah. And if your heart softens towards Allah, then necessarily it softens towards Allah's creation. And you start looking around you of who you can give, who you can help. It's supposed to be a natural consequence. And the opposite is also true. If you're making salat, but your salat doesn't make you want to give, then maybe there's something wrong with that salat. Because one should lead directly to the next. It should be a natural consequence. You see, salat to us, to the Muslim, if you study Quran, you study the concept of salat in the Quran, salat to us is like a seed. And it keeps bearing these different kinds of fruit. so many different things come out of salat. And one of the fruits of salat is mentioned in this ayah. And if you're praying, but this fruit isn't manifesting, this plant isn't coming out, and this one of its manifestations being you become concerned for others. You want to give food to others. You know, وَلَمْ نَكُنْ نُطْعِمُ الْمِسْكِينَ. We would never even consider it. That thought didn't even cross our minds. Subhanallah. There are people who assume, unfortunately, that they're people of Allah only by doing one thing or doing another thing. Okay, I'm going to make salat, I'm going to make really, really good salat, then I'm going to recite some Quran, then I'm going to study some ilm, then I'm going to do this, and they have a list of things they're going to do. But you know that list comes from Allah. What your priorities should be, what the result of your salat should be, comes from Allah. Salat is not just an act, it's a reorientation of our thought process. And so in this beautiful, beautiful ayah, Allah talks about people who didn't really take advantage of their salat. And I want to leave you with this other place in the Quran where Allah talks about a generation of people who are worthless. فَخَلَفَ مِن بَعْدِهِمْ خَلْفٌ. And what does He say about them? أَضَاعُوا الصَّلَاةَ. That's remarkable. He says about them, they wasted the prayer. He didn't say تَرَكُوا الصَّلَاةِ. They abandoned the prayer. أَوْ لَمْ يُصَلُّوا. They didn't pray. He didn't say that. He said أَضَاعُوا الصَّلَاةَ. Profound words. They wasted the prayer. In other words, this is a seed. If you don't water it, if you don't let its fruits come out, its manifestations yield, for those things to become reality, then you wasted this beautiful seed. You know, salat is something that should bring other things to life. That's what it's supposed to do. So may Allah Azza wa Jal make us people of real salat. People that when they make salah, it leads to something. It leads to them wanting to concern themselves with the needs of others. And they don't become insensitive to that, so the only thing they worry about is entertaining themselves. وَكُنَّا نَخُوضُ مَعَ الْخَائِضِينَ حَتَّى أَتَانَا الْيَقِينَ. Until and we stayed this way until وَكُنَّا نُكَذِّبُ بِيَوْمِ الدِّينِ حَتَّى أَتَانَا الْيَقِينَ. We lived a carefree life. We didn't even think about Judgment Day until the final conviction came to us, which is death itself. May Allah wake us up well before al-yaqeen comes to all of us. May Allah Azza wa Jal make us a people of salah and make us a people who give. And wallahi, when we give, maybe our deeds weren't enough, but the du'as of those that we gave to, maybe their du'as are going to be the ones that save us on Judgment Day. Barakallahu li wa lakum. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
The Modern Family. The Modern Family.
Do you usually get lots of calls?
Dear listeners, welcome back to The Modern Family with our honorable guest Ibtisam Al-Riyami and Fathiyya Al-Farsiyya. Thank you again for joining us on the show. I know it's a busy time and everyone is busy with preparation of Eid. But today's topic is very, very important. And we stopped at the point that Ibtisam made about time of reflection. And during the break we were discussing that most of the time we tend to misuse this phrase. And instead of slowing down and capitalizing on the less amount of time that we have, we become non-productive whatsoever. So if anyone wants to comment on that. Well,
me? I'm here to facilitate only. I'm here to learn, actually, from both of you.
I think I use the word reflection maybe very quickly, but it is a fairly fundamental principle, isn't it? And you're much better versed in our religion than I am, so I'm sure you can come up with an appropriate hadith. But if we just go through the mechanics of Ramadan, abstaining from food and our kids, sleeping during the day and not sleeping at night, and those kind of things, you've totally missed it. You've totally missed the point. If indeed you take the time to understand why you're doing it, and what's the meaning behind it, then it's a totally different experience. And I say this because when I started to fast, when we were kids, it was something that our parents did. And then we grew up a bit more, and it was something that we had to do. We were students in the States and would fast, and when we were asked by our colleagues, would say, it's a holy month, we do it. And it stops there. And of course, if I am to be asked now, it's not about abstaining from food. It's actually a much bigger meaning for us.
Yeah.
So you totally miss the point, I think, if you don't take the time consciously to reflect. And the best time to reflect, as you all know, is in the privacy of your own room in the middle of the night, where you actually are not bothered by the goings-on of life.
Yeah, I mean, you switch off all your senses and you keep the mind only working.
It's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, and
fantastic.
that's the main idea of staying at night. And Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has emphasized on praying at night and reading Quran at night more than any other time. Even when He wanted to prepare. So this is something we could learn. Yeah, when Allah Subhanahu wa Taala wanted to prepare His Prophet for a huge task. Yeah, and He told him, He warned him, إِنَّا سَنُلْقِي عَلَيْكَ قَوْلًا ثَقِيلًا. Yeah, it's very heavy. What's going to come is going to be very, very heavy.
Subhanallah.
So what did He tell him to do? What was the first instruction? قُمِ اللَّيْلَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. Stay up at night. Yeah, connect with Allah at night. It is that sort of the serenity, yeah, and the deep thinking that happens at night. It gives you so much strength, because all other senses just shut off. Even biologically, your body starts, producing different enzymes than the ones produced during the day. It calms everything down, but the mind is still alert, and the mind then will control your own soul, and you'd feel much, much stronger during the day.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if we do this for 30 days, I think that's what gives us the ammunition to actually go a long way during the year. Yeah. But it's not fair as well to ask everybody to continue exactly the same pace after Ramadan as it, because even the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if we reflect upon how was he described by his companions, he in Ramadan was more generous, than the wind itself.
Yes.
Did they ever describe him out of Ramadan the same way? No, he was generous, but more so in Ramadan.
Correct.
Yeah. So it is not fair to ask people to behave exactly the same in Ramadan and outside Ramadan.
Yeah.
But what we tell them is just whatever good that you started, continue. And I think even in professionally, you're always asked to focus on one thing and excel in it. Yeah. So if you did a lot of things in Ramadan, just pick up one. Choose one aspect that you really want to excel on in the next year until it really becomes a habit. It's become second nature. You don't even think about it. The next Ramadan, inshallah, you'll pick up another thing. And Ramadan after Ramadan, this is how we grow. And this is how we sustain. Yeah? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through His messenger, the wisdom of His messenger, told us, أَحَبُّ الْأَعْمَالِ إِلَى اللَّهِ أَدْوَمُهَا وَإِنْ قَلَّ. Yeah, the most loved of deeds in the sight of Allah, the best deeds in the sight of Allah, those who are, which are sustained and continued, no matter how little they are. And there is another teaching of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam: قَلِيلٌ دَائِمٌ خَيْرٌ مِنْ كَثِيرٍ مُنْقَطِعٍ. A little bit of work that you could sustain and continue is better than too much that you do and then you just stop doing. Yeah, some people get so much excited in Ramadan and maybe just after Ramadan and pay so much money to the poor and needy. 3 months down the line, they don't have any money to give anymore. Yeah, they stop giving. Yeah, it's best to give little by little, drop by drop. Yeah,
Yes.
Then you make an effect every single day.
Dr. Weil, I think most of the time as human beings we rush into doing more than one thing at a time. We want to cover everything, and this is good when it comes to goodness. But if you're thinking about sustainability at the end, focus on one thing that you really like and that you really it's within your capabilities, and don't try and do a lot of things and then you discontinue.
It's a sure failure.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and you reach to a failure.
I think I can't agree more, really. I mean, I think you've touched really on a very important point. And Islam is all about moderation. And success is all about moderation. Is al-wasatiyya, as we know. and I think you are more knowledgeable in religion than myself, but there is, I think, حديث بما معناه إن المنبت لا أرضا قطع ولا ظهرا أبقى, if I recall correctly. So moderation is a key concept in sustainability. If you overdo it or underdo it, if that's, if I can use this word, then it's never sustainable. And another dimension that I would like also to throw is الذكرى. إن الذكرى تنفع المؤمنين. I think to me and in my own personal experience, if you actually ensure that you attend, lectures, you actually involved in such discussions, these dhikra, whether for us, for our kids, for our youth, really help. I mean, if you ensure that they actually go to halaqat al-dhikr, that they actually attend lectures that enlighten them about our religion and how to do things, how not to do things. I think how many of us sometimes when you walk out of a lecture and I say, I really feel like I was kind of renewed or revived, because by nature, human beings can get rusted on certain things unless you make sure that not just practice it, but actually attend with groups of people who can even add and teach you more than what you already know.
Even in the level of friends and family, yes, that can also be attained. For example, if you have certain goodness that you practice and then you remind your sister that let us do this together. Correct. This works as a reminder, and you get the reward and she gets the reward also, and you get a double reward for reminding her.
Correct.
So we tend to forget we always think of the goodness and we think of ourselves that this will help us. But when we help others, when we extend a hand, when we remind them, when we hold their hands towards the goodness, then we all gain.
Correct.
At the end of the day, we are one community and we share the goodness.
Correct.
So this should be a practice within our family, within our friends, at work as well. And we remind ourselves, and people, no matter how deviated they might seem to look away from the religion, there is goodness inside them. And once you remind them of that goodness, they come back to the base, to the original state, which is goodness. Yes. And they would accept that goodness from you, and they would start practicing it, and they would change slowly. So you need to give people the benefit of doubt and seek that goodness within them. Sometimes we judge people. We see someone and then we say, for example, if we're collecting donations for charity, and then we look at someone and we say, I don't think he's going to give us anything. He's not the type that pays charity. And we judge. We work as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is not our job. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who judges others. So we assume that person will not pay charity, but maybe he pays in the dark more than what we pay in public. So we need to give people the opportunity to find the goodness within them.
But yeah, so this is me putting my mother hat on, and as the saying goes, you're the best parent when you're a grandparent. So because by then you will have accumulated the experience of life and mostly what not to do and how not to do it. So that's the day-to-day struggle with your kids. You feel that time is running out as a parent. We're not getting any younger, and you want that newfound wisdom hammered into the kids, because you're hoping if they can retain 20% of it, that when you're gone one day, that will come to use. And I think in that anxiety and that constant struggle, maintaining the right balance, I feel like a failure if I wake up at 2:00 in the morning and I go to masjid and my kids are totally asleep.
Yeah.
And I have that struggle as a parent. So when do you drag them out? And then it becomes that that excitement of the month of Ramadan, and you're not really sure what you've done after that. So I think as a parent, that's a constant struggle, is to know how far to push and and how far do you let them learn those lessons? I'm not sure I know the formula. All I know is I'm in that constant battle every single day.
We are all in that battle, maybe at different levels, at different age groups of children, and of course the teenagers. It's much more challenging because they have their own minds already at that age, and they would challenge everything. With younger children, it's much easier. However, there is always a way. There is always a way, and we just need to keep going and discover new ways. What is it that will work with each individual?
Absolutely.
Yeah. We might have 3 or 4 kids, and we try to apply the same way with all of them, forgetting that they are totally different people. So we go back to what you have said initially when we started, that you need to really understand the different needs for each one of them.
That's true.
And I think also, in my view, we tend to be so depending on our capabilities. So we really, hammer ourselves hard. I should wake them up. I should do this. I should, make sure that there is a plan, there is a competition, there is punishment, etc. But I think, in my personal experience, we should not underestimate the power of dua.
Yes,
that's true.
Dua lahum, to actually pray for them. That at the end of the day, we take al-asbab, we spend the effort, but the success comes from God.
Yeah.
And I think that's in my personal experience was the most powerful thing is I should not. And when you are a younger parent, you tend to so much depend on yourself to achieve success, and you kind of forget about dua and the power of that, etc. It comes only with age and wisdom and when you learn more. So I think dua is also very, very fundamental in the formula of raising kids.
We would like to bring somebody else to the table also, although virtually. Someone that you both know. It's part one other member of the 5. What do you call you? 5.
Fantastic 5.
Of the Fantastic 5.
It's actually more than 5.
More than 5. Okay, so dear listeners, we are joined now by Shamsa Al-Harrasi, another friend of our 2 guests here. She is a VP in ADCO. She's the Drilling Technical Support and Well Service Director. That was a mouthful. So she's so she's with us on the phone. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, Wa'id.
How are you doing?
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. It's an honor to have you with us in the studio on the phone. We would have loved to have you in the studio, but I was warned actually that having all 3 of you here might be difficult to handle. Yeah. So would you like to say anything to our friends here first of all before we really bombard you with questions?
No, I think they've done all what is required, so I think I'm off the hook.
We would like to talk about how to sustain practically. If you could give us practical, hints and points, any points that you would give, whether in your personal life or at work, something that we could use personally or with our children, how to sustain and maintain good performance. If you were to mentor someone and you wanted them to really excel and sustain a particular performer, what is it that you would really advise him or her?
Actually, I would like to use my own example, and rather than giving advice, is basically the learning that I had learned through the experience. If I look into my current job, using that as an example, basically I'm supposed to introduce changes that would lead into sustainable cost reduction in a world that is everything is just getting more expensive, and that is very challenging. And the way that I learned is the only way that you can introduce change and then sustain that change to ensure sustainable results is basically to get whoever is doing it is to believe in it. So to embrace the change itself. And this is number one. Number two is you cannot introduce fundamental changes, because basically when you have a system that is already established, you cannot just change it.
Okay.
It is very hard. Therefore, I go into Hadith al-Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and I do not recall the exact word, but basically it says al-qalil al-da'im, I think bima ma'na, al-qalil al-da'im khayrun min al-kathir al-munqata. Basically is a small good deed or continuous small good deeds are better than big that is unsustainable or discontinuous. And for me, if I just look into this, is I read deeper than that. Is that when you have an established system, you cannot introduce very big changes. So if I take Ramadan as an example, I think while we strive to do a lot because of the reward itself, is we have to introduce small changes that we take that to sustain it, and that will be easier. Basically to try and change a discipline into a behavior. And that is not an easy thing. So for all of that, it is to embrace it, to know the reward, and to keep the momentum by striving to achieve that for the reward that you will get.
Okay, so having a set reward is very important.
Absolutely, because otherwise it becomes very, very boring. You'll do it for what in return?
What's in it for me?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that is the mere meaning of life. Is why would we wake up in the middle of the night? Why would we stay away from so many things that are very if you go anywhere and you feel, why can't I have this or have that? Unless I know what is the reward, and the reward is big, then I can stay away from it. Without a reward, that reward actually is the energy that, or the momentum, if you wish, that will keep you going.
Yes, absolutely.
Shamsa, we were talking...
And I go again, you have to believe in it. You have to embrace it.
If
you don't believe it, you will not sustain it.
That's number one. We've noted that down. Thank you.
Now, I was just going to add to what Shamsa said. Yes, there's inshallah, a bigger reward for us in the hereafter, inshallah. But Fatih and I were discussing this earlier. The reward is right here. The experience that you go through in Ramadan is the reward already. I mean, even before you get it later on. So if we go away from religion and work and so on, and you just, our example. Our example in our own household, the whole group is actually going through, the whole friends group is going through better health awareness. So it's got nothing to do with work, it's got nothing to do with religion. Although, of course, fundamentally, you have to be healthy to even perform your obligations. So in going through that, we talked a lot about, we've got a WhatsApp group, and it's all about health tips, and stay away from this and stay away from that. No frying foods. There's lots of soup, no cream. Fathiya bought all of us sea salt from Sur. We all have at least one big bag of sea salt from Sur, because of course processed salt is one of the two poisons.
I get well from Sur.
Now,
I'm sure you're enjoying it.
I do.
If it's treated with sea salt, you're okay. And we just read the menus, and we keep WhatsApping each other, and there's no frying food. And almost every single member of my household, there's no exercising much. Every single member of my household, including myself, has lost weight, is looking much better. We're able to indeed get up and do what we, all the ibadah. And you can see the difference. The odd day when you're invited and you kind of do it a little bit more than the day before. It's just right there. It's absolutely immediate. So the reward is not just the hereafter, and some people don't necessarily believe in all of that. But actually, there's just too many studies, too many too many scholars who've actually documented that just the act itself is, if you're just thinking about the dunya things,
Yes.
is a reward in itself.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I just want to tell Shamsa, I know she is not on the call anymore, but it's so refreshing to hear her voice. So it feels like Eid already when you heard her. Alhamdulillah. I mean, I agree with all of you, including Shamsa. You need, however, to augment the feeling of the of the benefits of the fruits, and remind yourself, as I said, always about it. Sometimes it's good, you see it, you feel it, it's a loss of weight, it's you feeling healthy, you feeling more energetic, but sometimes you need really to even every day count your blessings.
Yes.
I think once you count your blessings, that gives you even more drive to do more, that will keep these blessings for you going. So.
Shamsa has mentioned a few points which are very, very important, and the first thing that she said is believe in it and embrace the change. And many times that we perform these rituals thinking that maybe they're just part of the month, they come with the month, and not believing really deep in the message itself. And that's why maybe we don't sustain it, we don't continue with that message.
You remember, Hatim, when we had in the show a father and a daughter. She's 8 years old and memorizing 6 chapters of the Quran.
MashaAllah.
Yeah. And she is not the only one. Her sisters, her brothers, they're memorizing Quran, some of them the whole Quran. And they were able, mashallah, to sustain and continuously maintain reading Quran, despite keeping moving from one country to another. We sort of, sometimes break our routines just shifting from one room to another. Yeah, and everything just falls apart. And they managed to maintain the system, moving from Australia, Algeria, Jordan, and now in Oman, and sustaining all of that. And one of the fundamental things that he said is that you also need to believe in it, and you need to make your children believe in the cause. So to him, it was reading Quran, memorizing Quran. So one of the things, rather than using a stick, he said, listen, children, Quran has so and so benefits. These are the benefits that you would reap in dunya. These are the benefits that you would reap in akhirah.
He actually explained this before starting the program of the Quran.
Yes.
For his children. He spent time, months maybe, explaining to them the idea, introducing the idea.
So the idea of believing in it. Yeah.
But I like what you said, or maybe secondhand from what he said. Belief has got to be translated to something a bit deeper. Yeah. There are certain things you just believe in. But in God's wisdom, being humans and being weak, being judgmental, being, you ask questions, there is that first-hand experience that deepens that belief. And that's the point I'm making.
Yeah.
I read a lot of Sheikh Nabulsi's work. I love his writing. And he, everything he says is so almost poetic. But if I translate it in English, and it says, I think he always reminds us that if you want al-akhirah, the hereafter, then work for the hereafter. And if you want the dunya today, then work for the hereafter. Yeah. Because if you want the dunya, you can only get it by working for the hereafter. And part of that wisdom, indeed, is when you experience some of these, ibadat, you see the reward right there and then. I've gone through some, personal trials and tribulations. You can't be my age and not go through them. And you get to a point where it's the point of absolute submission, that there's no power, earthly power, that can help you out, no matter how big, how strong, how wealthy, and that point of submission gives you a lot of humility. And once you've gone through that realization and you go through the point of submission, the peace that comes upon you, it's something that you cannot explain to someone else. Now, I have that feeling in the back of my head. I've moved on with my life. I'm out of those trials and tribulations. I'm sure some more are to come my way. That's just the nature of life. But in having gone through that experience and seen the effect of it, no Prozac tablet could have helped me out. No money could have helped me out. It's that realization, and for me, I keep that. And when I stray and life takes me away from it, I try to remind myself. We went through at one point, and this still goes on, دورة التدبر, which is
yes.
you know,
Abu Sinan.
Abu Sinan, Allah yadhkura bil khair. So that's when you're in the masjid and you kind of give yourself time away from life, and
Yes.
And I can tell you firsthand, I miss that feeling. I miss that feeling of getting it, really getting it.
Yeah.
And that's not in the hereafter. That's
It's here.
That's here. So we talked about reflection, we talked about belief, and I think the element of experience is fundamentally a building block.
Don't hear it from others. Try it yourself,
Try it
and then you'll
yourself.
find out.
Try it yourself. I mean, no one could have told me, and I can't actually explain it to anyone else either.
Yeah.
You kind of have to experience it yourself, and that's why I give the example of small changes in habit. You're zigzagging and yo-ing with your weight all year. You can't lose a kilo.
Yeah.
And here you introduce discipline, a small change in habit, and you're consistent with it.
Yeah.
And you get the reward at the end of the month.
Yeah.
Not in 10 years' time, just right immediate. So what I do know is, if I maintain that discipline, I have the belief because I've experienced it firsthand. My kids have experienced it firsthand. My neighbors, who's my brother and my sister-in-law, we eat together, and they've experienced it regardless whether they liked it or not. They've also, the whole household, ours and theirs, is feeling much healthier. There's no belief required. We've done it.
Yes.
So now, what next? Indeed, maintain that discipline.
Yeah.
As my cook said, you mean no fried foods ever? I said, well, we should at least.
I would like to talk to you after Eid and find out what happened on the day of Eid.
Yes. That's a problem.
Dear listeners, we would like to remind you that the numbers to call are 24602058. That's 24602058. We will take a very short break, and we'll see you after the break, inshallah.
The Modern Family.
So as parents, we make mistakes, and we at times may yell at our children and do things and say things that we wouldn't want anyone else to talk to our children in that way. We would be so mad at them if they did. But as a parent, we often feel a lot of guilt after these moments. We worry that we've really messed things up. But we have to remember that the parent-child relationship is a relationship, and relationships are messy, and they have conflict, and nothing goes smoothly in relationships. And that's what's so great about relationships, is because it allows us to grow and learn to be with other people. And so when we have these mess-ups as parents, the most important thing is that we repair with them. We go to them, we apologize, we let them talk about the experience and how they experienced it. And then we can know that it's okay to let go of the guilt, because we're human. It's a relationship. Relationships have conflict. And our children are resilient when they have to deal with difficult things. The very thing that builds resilience is struggling and getting through it. And so we can actually use these as valuable moments and let go of the guilt, because we're building resilience in our children, and we're teaching them how to repair and make things right in relationships.
The Modern Family.
Dear listeners, welcome back to The Modern Family. Today here in the studio we have two wonderful guests discussing how to maintain momentum and sustaining good behavior, good habits during Ramadan and after Ramadan, in personal life or professionally. In the studio here we have Ibtisam Muhammad Barakat Al-Riyamiyah, who is People and Change Director at Petroleum Development Oman, and Fathia Al-Farisiyah, who is Information and Risk Manager. Yeah. The numbers to call are 24602058. That's 24602058. Just before we went to the break, we talked a little bit about we need to believe in things, because believing in things have the most profound effect in the journey of change, especially when it comes to changing behavior of the mass. Yeah, I remember yesterday I received a call from a very angry cousin. Yeah. She was saying, you know what? Our people are being shelled, killed, tortured every day in Palestine, in Gaza. And yet we see people going to Starbucks. Yeah? I need to go and shut all Starbucks coffee shops. We need to work together, and we need to boycott those. We need to do something, talk to the government and shut all these Starbucks and Marks and Spencer and Yeah? And she was so emotional. I said, well, I totally agree with you, but what will it do to our final cause? Our final cause is we don't want any Muslim to spend any penny that would contribute into the killing of another Muslim in Palestine. Yeah, and we know that the Zionist, entities, Starbucks and Marks and Spencer, they do contribute directly to the Zionist army, etc. So that was the drive. She wanted to, stop people doing that, and she couldn't understand why people still went and drank that coffee. And I said, well, it's many things, yeah, but it's closing down Starbucks. You don't need to do that. What you need to do is work on something else that would actually cause the closure. Let them close it themselves. Yeah, because if we close Starbucks today, another coffee shop, an Israeli brand, would come here and people would go to it. Because what we didn't do is change, people's mindset to keep them really going. If we distribute flyers today that people need to change and boycott these, they would boycott for a month and 2 and 3, and then they would go back to the old habits. I said, what we need to do is the following. We need to raise awareness in these people. Let them think and believe that individual actions really affect the surroundings. Because what people really they underestimate, their individual power. And this is exactly what's happening here. Yeah? 1 cup of coffee that I buy will affect people of Palestine. Yet they do not understand that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, لا يحقرن أحدكم نفسه. Do not, ridicule or underestimate yourself and the power of change that an individual could have. Yeah, and that comes to, we need to change that individualistic, approach, that they are looking at themselves, these individuals, as it's only me. But no, look at you and your friends as a group. You change as a group, things will change. You change as a family, things will change. So we need to change the beliefs in people rather than closing Starbucks. Once the beliefs would change, Starbucks would close, Marks and Spencer would close. I remember in about 2007, about 150 stores of M&S closed in Europe. Because people changed. They thought they were not trendy anymore. At the same time, business was really good in the Middle East, where M&S really opened up more stores. Yeah. So I think the best way is to change people's mindset, and then change would come. Maybe permanent change. And this is something that we need to adapt. I've been talking too much, I think. Yeah? And we need, I need your view on this. As a people and change director, what do you think? Is it changing people's mindset before actually, imposing a change, or changing, make the actual physical change and then anticipate people to adapt to it?
I think
How does it work?
I think we have talked about that while. If it's a change that doesn't come with belief, then it's transient. It'll die.
Yeah.
Whether it's in a week's time, whether in fact the first day of Eid, it'll die. So you do need that belief.
Yeah.
But maybe I do give the microphone to Fathia, because she's been role modeling for us. At least in my eyes, she's been role modeling some changes in life, and teaching the rest of us how to go through them. And she's made a huge impact on me personally. And now we're talking about just lifestyle, de-stressing, healthier living. And I think it is worth sharing some of those nuggets of wisdom.
Please.
I think, well, I'm not sure I've done all what Ibtisam has said. But I think there is a lot of things that we already mentioned, which is, awareness. Awareness is a fundamental thing. If you know what you don't know, then you know something. If you don't know what you don't know, then you really there is really a problem. So awareness, as you have mentioned, is very, very important. Is to know, to learn more about if you, for example, are really focusing on changing your life to your lifestyle to a healthier lifestyle, you need to understand what does it mean to be, to follow a healthier lifestyle. What is food is all about, how your body actually process, and take, and congest or digest food and so on. So awareness in anything is very, very important. The other thing in change is, as we have mentioned, is to believe that you need it. And sometimes you either going to be hit with really a problem, and therefore that becomes your main drive of change. Like in my case, when I faced a life-threatening disease, then I really had to do my changes pretty quickly. But I wouldn't have succeeded without lots of awareness, lots of readings, lot of spending an effort to learn more about what I'm trying to do. And so awareness, believing, and then a lot of discipline and determination. And we cannot do it in one go. We mentioned again about, small bites of changes that can really, if you see the small insects sometimes, or the birds when they build their own, their own nests. Yeah. I mean, you can't believe, what they're collecting will end up really building what you eventually see. But yes, small changes, and we talked also the very first thing about efforts. Things will not happen by itself. You need to spend an effort, whether an effort in making yourself more aware, whether an effort in making the changes, etc. So really, on the practical level, it's a combination of all these that you really need to put together to make the formula of the, sustainability and change actually, continue. So in a nutshell, you need to learn what you're trying to do, to take it in small pieces, to have the discipline and the determination to continue doing it, and hopefully not break it in the first day of Eid. Or I have to say, it's very, it's very challenging to maintain your your healthy lifestyle during the first day of Eid. But I have to say that a small bite of halwa will not harm. So.
I think change is very, very important. That many times we feel that change is difficult. But when we are faced with a calamity that forces us to change, then it becomes immediate and instant. And we should not wait until that point of time. I myself have gone through that change as well. In 96, I had a snake bite, and I was in a coma for 4 days.
Cool.
And when I woke up, that was like an instant change for me, that I've been given a new life and I have to do something about it. And to me, I think now when I go back and I look at those days, I say that what if I did not get up at that point of time? We need to think of the change that will make us better, the goodness, before anything happens.
I would have done this show myself,
Yeah, you would have been alone now.
Yeah.
So I think it's very, very important. And to also instill in our children that change is good. When we want to change into something, we need to think about it and the benefits that we'll get out of this change, and not just wait until something happens and then we implement change, because it might be too late for that.
Implementing change needs planning.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I make a career out of it.
It needs planning. Could you please take us through the practical steps? Yeah, practically, if I want to implement a change in something, a thing, okay, give me a plan, something that I could use and then implement in, X, Y, and Z, etc.
Dr. Al, I think the biggest two calamities people are facing today, one is losing weight and one is time management. So any of these two will...
Yes, and I think any parent or any individual out there would really benefit from really knowing. Now we've talked a lot about, the psychological part and the moral part and the religious part. How do we do it practically?
Well, the one-word answer is you strive.
Okay.
Because it's not easy. If it was easy, you wouldn't have made a show out of it.
Yeah.
So maybe we talk about the immediate experience we're going through. So just before Ramadan, what was your day-to-day schedule and what was it in Ramadan? I'm far more calculating in Ramadan because I know that there's certain things I've planned to do, and if I don't get that discipline of time management, speaking of time management, it's not going to get done. So being in bed at the right time, absolutely ruthless with my time, and knowing your priorities. When the football matches were going on, I did not participate, I'm afraid. I'd hear all the news because I knew that the priority for me in this month was something else. It was something totally different. So setting up your priorities, getting organized, really practical stuff. What time do you get up and go to work? I mean, that is seriously calculated. If you're going to come back from the masjid at 5 and you're going to have exactly 1.5 hours to sleep, and then half an hour for taking a shower and getting ready, and half an hour to drive because I live far. And I mean, it is to that point of micromanaging. And yes, it was hard the first couple of days. Then you get into a routine, and then it's no longer a burden.
If I may add just one thing, I sort of did that a while ago when I wanted to change from working in the field to working, in PDO here in Muscat. Because my whole life was revolving on that 2 weeks schedule. I would work 2 weeks and then come back home 2 weeks. It was daunting decision to come back to Muscat because I really didn't want to work every day from 7 till 4 till 5. And I had to say, okay, I made a pie chart of how I wanted my days to be from Sunday, throughout the week, 7 days, and 2 categories, weekdays, weekends. And I said, okay, now I'll have another pie chart for the whole week. And that pie chart, the weekly pie chart, would actually represent my life. And it would tell me exactly where my life is actually going. And it was shocking. I was shocked. The things that we do on a daily basis, that we until we actually visualize and see, really, is this me every single week, day in, day out, until I die? Because your weekly schedule is basically your life. You might change from one day to the other, but the overall weekly schedule is the same. You have time for family, you have time for friends, you have time for work, and you have time. One of the shocking things is that we take, as a man, I spend exactly the same percentage of time just going to shower twice daily and get dressed, my dishdasha, at the same time that I pray. Can you imagine? 15 minutes, 5 times, and just getting prepared, and it's exactly the same. So 4% of my time is actually what I'm praying. It's nothing. So I think what we need to, all what you have mentioned is about being ruthless with your time. You need to strive, you need to schedule, do all of that, and then visualize it. Because I'm sure you will tweak something here and there.
You know why people don't do pie charts of their life?
Only engineers.
and maybe only why. But I think priorities, knowing what your priorities are, that drives everything else. I mean, the football matches, for instance, they were some at 8 o'clock in the evening, and there were some at midnight. And those who were devoted to football, they actually watched it. I'm sure they went through that discipline.
With every goal, subhanallah, just to get...
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. And they didn't show up the next day at work.
That I can't say. Absolutely, the practical aspects.
Yes.
I think going again on the practical aspect, I think it's going to be good that someone picks just one thing and focus on it at least on 20 for as they say, habits can be changed on in 21 days.
Yes.
If, for example, your son is striving to make sure that every salah he does it in masjid, then let's for the next 3 weeks just focus on that and make sure it's a habit, so that he just do it. Maybe that's something very simple, but again, some people don't really do it. They miss masjid salah, etc. So I think if we take one bite at a time, then maybe and make sure that we practice it over at least 3 weeks or 1 month, then maybe it becomes a habit that will be sustainable.
Yes,
I think also what is really important is to involve the environment around you with that change, because you might have people not accepting the change that you want to implement to your life. I know people who will never answer their calls after 9. At 9:30 maximum, they're in bed. So no matter what happens, even if World War III is out there, that's the change they wanted for their lives.
Yes.
And the families around them, they did not like it. And then by time they learned how to accept.
That's a good idea.
That this is his choice, and it's what he thinks which is good for him, and we have to respect that. And many of our communities sometimes don't understand, and they don't think, why you don't want me in your house?
We're so random, I think, as a society.
Yes.
To your point, indeed, being explicit is takes you a long way. You make these contracts, or someone my mentor, in fact, at work, told me a long time ago in terms of my career moves and so on. I said, be explicit about your career moves, because it's a change that you're making, and the kind of burden that's going to put on your time, etc., etc. And it's absolutely amazing. I've followed that advice all my working life, professional life, and I've never made a career change without actually sitting consciously with my family, and I mean the extended family, because you're absolutely right. If someone comes and visits, and you're just you've got the next 3 hours to sleep because you've got a presentation in the morning. Yeah. If they understand that, or if you're in the middle of studies or whatever, so that's excellent advice, actually. Being explicit about the choices you're making for the following reasons.
Yes. Explain it to them. The nearest family that you have, explain it to them, and I'm sure they would understand. But if you implement the change without talking to them, without making them understand, they would feel that you are arrogant, you don't want them in your house, and so on.
You get better support.
Yeah. Is it possible to be flexible at the same time? Some sort of flexibility, without compromising the final goal, or do we just say we are ruthless with our time and that's it? There is no change whatsoever going to happen, regardless.
Yeah, but while it's a good question, but we're humans, we're not robots, so we're not programmed. Yeah. Look, you're talking to someone who discipline is my lifelong ambition. I really I wish I was far more disciplined. I wish I were more disciplined than I am. But there are certain times where I'm absolutely disciplined.
Yes.
Month of Ramadan is a great example. So the question I ask myself is indeed, how do I transpose some, not even all, because you're absolutely right. The routine in Ramadan is so unflexible because, of course, there's so little time, especially in the summer. So you can't keep that up. But what is the 1 or 2 things that I should strive until next Ramadan to actually implement myself? Because I want it. It's good for me.
Yeah. It's so now I feel really blessed that you accepted my invitation, because it came so late. And you accepted to be here. So thank you very much. It also shows me how sort of support you give, not only me and Hatim and the show, but that you care about sharing your views with the nation and advising the nation. So we would like really to thank you both for all of that. When I said flexibility, because I've seen parents, it's not about now ourselves, but I've seen parents, when they say to their children, it's 8 o'clock on bed, it means 8 o'clock, but not 1 minute past 8. Literally. Yeah. And regardless yeah, if they have something in hand, they will just leave it to fulfill that 8 o'clock target. Is this what is it all about? Yeah, is it? Do we really, start worshipping that time that we have set? Or yeah,
I think that depends on the view of the parents, I suppose.
Yeah.
I wouldn't knock it. I grew in a household where I don't think it was as rigid as that, but we all knew 8 o'clock was that's it. I was in secondary school and I was still being held to those standards. I'd wake up in the middle of the night because it's the best time to meditate or study. So you always find your tricks. I guess flexibility, maybe in its widest sense. If that is the priority in that household, then yes, maybe it is a good thing. But you can't have every single aspect of your life being so as rigid as that. Not in this day and age.
Yeah, we don't want our listeners here, so some of them, just to take it to the extreme.
Yeah.
We've heard so and so say this, and you need to be ruthless, and you need really to stick your time. It will help you achieve your goals. We don't want them to take it to the extreme.
But that's why setting priorities is absolutely
exactly.
The underpinning principle here.
Yeah.
For those priorities, you will need to be ruthless with your time.
Yes.
While I think we need to be like windows in our homes. They're firm, then solid, but they have space in between for the seasons. When they change, they expand. So you always have that small amount of tolerance.
I want to be a PVC window. It's a more insulating.
Then you will break. One day you will break.
No, it's more flexible than aluminium.
You can't. Yeah. We can aspire to that, but you can't. Not in this day and age.
Yeah.
Not with life being what it is.
Yeah. Any last words? We would like to wrap up the show, and it's been really an honor to have you both here. Any last words to everyone who's listening out there?
Yes, I think Alhamdulillah, that as you said at the beginning of the show, Ramadan passed so fast. It was just like a light, nice summer cloud. I hope, inshallah, everyone have at least picked one or two messages out of our discussion today. It really touched on many important concepts and hopefully touched on some practical hints and tips. We are not experts. We're just trying to reflect on what we at least experienced. I really wish everybody a happy Eid inshallah, and أسأل الله أن يتقبل منهم إن شاء الله صيامهم وقيامهم إن شاء الله.
No, thank you for having us, and for me, the second time around, I'm always very humbled to sit next to the youth that's trying to do something for this country. We can only support you, not necessarily with our wisdom, but maybe life experiences. Some of them are good, some of them are not. But in all of that, we learn and aspire and strive. We wish everyone a very happy Eid and a blessed last day of Ramadan, inshallah.
Inshallah. Dear listeners, we come to the end of the show today. It's been really a wonderful journey, and I hope that we all learned from the discussions today. Tomorrow's show is an open show. We don't have any particular topic. The lines will be open for everyone to call, to congratulate, to share any points about anything that we talked about throughout the month of Ramadan or anything else. Yeah, it's open for everyone. So thank you very much again from me, Wa'il Al-Harasi, Hatim Al-Abd Salam, and everyone in the studio. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
The modern family. The modern family. Let us bridge the gap between generations. Let us shape up the modern family.
I remember when I first met you, I felt that God answered my call. There was that one place I always thought about, and I just wanted to be there with you. The place that no eye has ever seen, the place that no heart has ever perceived. I had a great feeling.